on my father's side and my mother's side. I've been researching General Forrest since I was in high school. I won the History Award when I was 16 for an original paper that I wrote on the Battle of Britton Lane. So I have been actively researching General Forrest for, gosh, over 50 years. I'm 66, so imagine that. Well, this is the only home left for General Nathan Bedford Forrest. All his other homes have been destroyed. He moved here when he was 4 years old. It was built in 1825. They moved here in 1833. He was born in Chapel Hill. His grandparents moved here first. His great-grandfather was from Virginia. They were all British when he was the original immigrant. And then William and Marion Beck were his parents. She was from here in Marshall County. And they moved to Mississippi when he was about 13 or 14 years old. Once they got to Mississippi, the father died. The father was a blacksmith. William, we have a kind of a blacksmith shop in the back if you want to look out the window. It's right back here. We don't have a blacksmith here today. Something about blacksmiths, they just die on us. I don't know. We haven't been able to keep one for a while. But blacksmithing is a lost art too, so it's hard to find them. And we like to have them here when we can get them here. But they were not a poor family. They were middle class. They were an average farm family. This is not a plantation. This is a farmhouse. This was a cabin. It's called a two-pen cabin with a dog trot. Now this is the original part of the house. I'll point out the things that are original. I can't come in. We can't fit anybody else in. Just tell them sorry.
We have to wait for the next portion.
Yeah. Okay. I will point out the things that are original. The two twin built-in cabinets are original. Most of the things that are in this room were donated by the United Daughters of the Confederacy, and they have meticulously researched all the different things that would have been of that period, like the pewter plates and the pewterware. This is a handmade table and benches that would have been typical for the era. You'll notice we have candlelight, and the sunflowers were named for his plantation in Mississippi. Now, he was considered a millionaire during the time before the war. He did make a lot of money before the war, and his plantation was called Sunflower Plantation. Let's see, if you look at the fireplace, you'll see those are cast iron skillets and teapots and irons, and there's a crane there that moves out over the fire. There's a wood box. We have bread bowls. We have baby chairs. We have bread bowls here. We have, this is how they would dry herbs. You'll see some gourds over there. Those were hollowed out to be dippers. You'd have a bucket and go draw. Of course, there was no electricity and no water here, so you had to tote your water. There's a well to the east, if you have a chance to go down there and look at it. It's a very cool place. And they would tote their water back for everything, for cooking, for bathing, for everything. Let's see, what else can I tell you about this room? We've got some modern conveniences here for, the fact that we're trying to preserve the home. So, but up above, we would have had a loft here and a ladder for the children to sleep in the loft, because this was the original pen of the house. And of course, heat rises to the top, and that's where it would be warm and cozy in the wintertime from the heat from the fireplace. All right, any other questions about this? The clock is not original.
What kind of wood is this made?
I'm going to say poplar on the floors, and we probably had cedar in the cedar logs, more likely, and they're dovetailed. If you look at the dove notches. Okay, and the guy who actually helped restore this is here today, the master wood craftsman. All right, we'll move to the next room rather quickly here. Got our temporary museum. We don't really have it, a lot of things on display right now. So this is just a temporary museum until we get the visitor center built. A lot of these are archaeological. We did some archaeological findings in the fence rows over here. We've got bottles and pieces of metal that were kind of from the trash heaps that were along the fence rows.
How did this place survive so long?
It was in the family from the Mayfields to the Forrest. The Forrest sold it to their cousins, the Rainies. The Rainies had it until they sold it to the state of Tennessee. The state of Tennessee was going to build it as a satellite historic site to Henry Court State Park. But in the legislature, the Black Caucus pitched a fit. And so they gave it to the Sons of Confederate, a 501c3, which is a Sons of
So we got lucky.
Yes, this is really a rare treasure because you do not find captains made in 1825 anymore. Okay, so this room has a lot of things in it. Just look around, read for yourself. This is an original picture of General Forrest when he was older. He's about 40 there. He died when he was 56. He carried a bullet with him to his grave. He was shot. He was in all kinds of hand-to-hand combat. He had 39 horses shot out from under him in various
encounters.
What's the word I'm looking for? No.
Skirmishes?
Frontal attacks. You know, when he was like at Fort Pillow or he just had like the Battle of Thompson Station, for example. Roderick, his horse Roderick was a very famous, famous horse. Then he also killed about the same number of men hand to hand. I think he killed more than that, but that's how many he was credited. Over here, behind this lady, there's a picture of the Confederate Veterans Home that was on the grounds of the Hermitage. On the balcony there, you'll see a lady there who frequently visited the veterans, and her name was Mary Kate Patterson. She was the sister-in-law to Sam Davis. How many of you have ever heard of Sam Davis, boy hero of the Confederacy? Okay, you got a statue right in the middle of the square, don't you? So that's the Confederate Veterans Home. It is no longer there. Moving along here, you have some newspaper articles and things like that. You certainly don't see that anymore. That was from the Nashville Banner. There's a picture of this young girl right here, and I think that one is the one that he got a lock of her hair. Is that the one? You might have to read about that one. But there's a couple of them. There's a couple of ladies that helped him, escape or catch up with the Yankees or whatever. And one of them, Emma Sampson was her name.
She forded the creek.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of where it's
Gadsden, Alabama.
Gadsden, Alabama.
Helped cross the Coosa.
Coosa. Okay.
And big statue of her on his horse.
Yes, and he actually wrote her a note and asked for a lock of her hair. Over here we have some kind of romanticized pictures of Forrest. This is from Fort Donelson's by David Wright. A lot of women fall in love with him with that picture. He was always portrayed as a very handsome young man, even though that's right there, he's middle-aged, about in his 40s. But he was very daring. He was our best and brightest star in the cavalry. And that's why you're going to see a lot of propaganda against him, a lot of just flat-out lies. First thing I'll tell you is he was not the Grand Wizard of the KKK. A lot of people will say that, but he was absolutely not. He was busy building a railroad from Memphis to Selma, Alabama. Also, you'll hear him they'll say things like, oh, he massacred all these people at Fort Pillow. Not true. That he took prisoners of war. They ended up in Andersonville. That was not true either. The other story that we just found out about, that I'm actually writing a book on, is that he had two lieutenants, one on each side, in that frontal attack. And the lieutenant got shot, and one was killed in action. The other lieutenant was wounded, and he stopped and took that lieutenant back to Jackson to get medical attention. He was with that young man for 22 days, and he lingered that long until he died. So that's new information we have about the Battle of Fort Pillow. So that discredits their story that he just left the field and left it to Chalmers, and that Chalmers was the one that allowed this massacre of black troops. Not true. The black troops had only been there for 2 weeks. They were not trained. They didn't know what they were doing. They were running away, but they still had their arms. They still had their guns in their hands. Well, let me tell you, folks, if you're in a war, gentlemen, you know this. If you have a combatant and the combatant is running away, it's one thing for them to raise their hands and surrender. It's another thing to keep running and still have their guns. So they did not surrender. They still had their guns. They were fleeing. They were legitimate targets. And, that's war. War's bad. War's, it's war is hell. That's exactly what it is. All right, this monument here to General Claiborne, Claiborne fell at the Battle of Franklin, and this was found actually in a flea market in Arkansas. So somebody bought it and gave it to us to keep until we could put up a sufficient honorarium to General Claiborne at Franklin. Behind you, behind this lady right here, you will see the results of some vandalism. Once we got the home and started restoring it, we put up a historical sign, and somebody took a sledgehammer to that metal sign, so you can see what damage it did. So we are not naive about how many people hate us because of this. But it's not because they're educated about General Forrest. It's because they've had a lot of misinformation. It's our duty to dispel that misinformation, to educate our young people and to understand that we fought for independence. We did not fight to keep our slaves. The slaves, actually, I think most people at that time knew that slavery was going out of fashion, mainly because of the mechanized revolution that was happening in the farming industry. Because, as you know, we all had tractors and combines and cotton pickers and all that later, and the war only extended the fact that we continued to have slavery. That wasn't an excuse, it was just a necessity because they had gone into debt. And so a slave was a very valuable piece of property at that time, and legally was called property. So when you have a law that you don't like, what do? You change the law. No, that's not what these people did. They decided to fight it out on the battlefield. But the South had been taking a lot of grief all those years because of the tariffs. You hear not a lot about tariffs these days, right? Well, the South was the #1 place for exporting cotton, and cotton we were receiving so much money for cotton, that was the primary income for the federal government at that time. So when Lincoln heard that, the South is seceding, well, there goes his treasury. He had no money to operate his government. So of course he freaked out, and he wanted to call to suppress an insurrection. We had every legal right, constitutional right to secede. The first revolution was in 1776. The second American Revolution was in 1861. It was definitely not a civil war. People will call it a civil war, but technically it wasn't a civil war because we weren't fighting against our government. We were fighting to become a new nation. That was very clear from the fact that we had a Congress, we had a president, we had currency, we had a national anthem, we had everything that was required to have our own country. And if you go back to the Treaty of Paris, you find out that we were sovereign states, and we had every sovereign right to either stay in the Union or not stay in the Union. How do we know this? Jefferson Davis, look behind you, is the president of the Confederacy. He was born in, General Lee was born on January 19th, 1807, and then he was born 1 year later in 1808, June 3rd. But President Jefferson Davis was imprisoned for his political views. And he actually wanted to take them to court so he could prove that we had a sovereign right to secede. They dismissed the case and let him go. So what more reason would you have if they didn't want to persecute him or hang him? Why would they keep him in prison? Well, they knew they didn't have a case. So if it went to the Supreme Court, we would have won. We would have proven that they killed 600,000 people needlessly, and the federal government would have had egg on their face. Here we go. Let's go to the next room. Next room is to your right.
Sorry, I'll go ahead. I have my lines right here.
I'm waiting for the movie about the Battle of Fort Phillips.
Sorry, I was just gonna look back. You're good.
You're fine.
They won't allow us to have a reenactment on federal property.
Oh, I don't.
Yeah, we'd have to go somewhere else to the video place where we go to film.
I met David right here. I'm a
Yeah,
curator.
yeah,
Did
okay.
y'all get the print?
Oh, yeah, he did that for,
The old glass room they found. This is what they found around this club. Yeah. Old farmhouse and stuff.
Go ahead.
I think the book is too short.
Okay.
Okay.
I started reading on it and I finished it in 2 days, and I was really unhappy because I was looking for more. I've got enough information.
Is that all, Jim?
Yes.
Thank you.
Spending 3 years
okay. This room was the second pen that was built here by the Mayfield family, Sally and William Mayfield. And this land is a Revolutionary War grant. So the Mayfields bought it and moved here and built the house in 25. And so that we suspect is the original first pen. This would be the addition, the second pen. The dog trot would be in the middle. Now, what do you think we would use this room for? This was more of a ladies' sitting room because we have some evidence that there are hooks in the ceiling for quilt racks that would have been lowered up and down. So the ladies would have invited their neighbors to come and quilting bees. They'd have, maybe the hostess might have some tea or cookies, and then they would sit around and gossip about the pen. And the men would get out of the house and, you know, it was a hen party, right? So you didn't want to be around. They would sit around the fire in the wintertime and do that kind of sewing. Behind you is a big wheel and a little wheel for spinning. We had a churn in the other room. I don't think I pointed that out. Okay, and then behind this gentleman here, we have before and after pictures of the house when the Sons of Confederate Veterans acquired it in, the state bought it from the Rainey family in 73, 77, something like that. And then the state of Tennessee gave it to the SCV in 97. So we've been working on this since 97. So you can see what kind of bad shape it was in. So this is our 25th year of the homecoming. It is specifically for a fundraiser. The visitor center to the west here will have a 2-story stone chimney and a pavilion, a gift shop, and a museum. So if anybody's wanting, if you think you're going to die, you can leave some money in your will or just make a donation. In this room you'll see a armoire because cabins did not have closets. So you would hang your clothes there. They didn't have a whole lot of clothes, so they might have hung their nightgown on a hook above the bed or something. But children did not have a lot of clothes. They went barefoot all summer, probably from March to October. You know, they didn't wear shoes. Wouldn't that be fun? Just run around. And I can also imagine if you came across this, you saw the creek coming this way, I can almost imagine 5-year-old or 6-year-old Nathan Bedford Forrest playing in the creek. Now there's lots of stories about General Forrest. I can't tell you a lot of them today because we've got a real long line. I would normally take more time, but we're going to go upstairs and see the bedrooms, and then if you have some questions, we have a little time left over, I'll tell you a couple of stories. We'll go up the stairs. Those of you who don't need to go up the stairs, if you want to stay, Downstairs, that's fine, but I want you to, just ask you to go out on the porch.
How many acres is the current property?
I think it's 80.
80, really?
I think so.
How much did they have when they owned it back then?
I'm thinking 40 something. I don't know the exact number. I'm sorry.
That'd be about all one family could sustain anyway, wouldn't it?
Well, there was a big garden. You see where all those tents are out there? That was a big garden. And then the well, I told you about the well. Did I tell you about the well?
Yep.
I'm just gonna go outside.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes,
Thank y'all for coming. Where are you from?
Hope you okay, ma'am?
She's gonna sit up there.
Okay. All right. I'll be last. Y'all go on up. Go ahead.
I'm gonna video a little bit. I ain't going
Okay.
up, man.
All right.
You talked about statue.
I'm well aware, Franklin. I'm with the UDC at Franklin. I'm all about that one. Yes, sir. Go on up and I'll. Okay. All
Ma'am,
right. Okay. Done?
I got the video on, so,
Sure.
and I'll wait for you on the porch.
Okay. That's fine. You're fine.
No, I was gonna let you take my own video.
Oh, no, I can't do that.
You
I'm
can't
sorry.
do that?
I'm
Okay.
sorry.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
can't
that's
walk and
fine.
talk at the same time.
Yes, ma'am.
All right. Okay, well,
Yes, ma'am.
I'll just let him know. Jim, there's one guy in here. He's gonna do some videotaping. You'll stay here. And I gotta go upstairs, yeah. Sorry to be so.
Yeah, I'll make it quick.
Natural, does it?
No, it don't.
The rock line, in a sense. I guess maybe it is, but the shelving and the rock line, and then on this side, they must have dug this out, maybe.
I don't know. That's interesting.
Did you do the tour yet?
Yes,
Be
sir.
careful. Don't fall.
I didn't go upstairs.
Oh, you didn't?
No,
yeah, it's
because
pretty hard. It's steep.